Hello everyone, this is Marco and welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special day because it is the release date of the all-new RubberSaurs Tyrannosaurus Rex. It will be available to purchase as soon as this video premiere ends. All the links are in the description, and without further ado, let's have a look at how we brought this figure to life. As most of you are aware, now I have transitioned completely to digital sculpting for the RubberSaurs. And I must say, it is a joy to work like this. It makes everything so much quicker and easier, and I can get the detail as crisp as I want. So here's a little time lapse of me sculpting the T-Rex. I sculpted everything on Nomad Sculpt, which is an app for the iPad. And I start using different spheres. I tweak the shape bit by bit and then sort of weld them together, remesh it all. I started with the body, the tail, then the head, and then the legs and the arms. As you can see, I'm doing everything in sections, not from one mesh only, but from multiple, and then sticking everything together pretty much. I then check all the proportions and make sure everything makes sense. Once I'm happy with the general shape, I tweak it till my heart's content, and I add every single detail, every single wrinkle, and scale in the skin. As you can imagine, this process takes quite a while, and I'm usually quite picky with my sculpts, so I took my time until I was satisfied with it and happy with the sculpt overall. Now we're ready for the next step. So I started designing this quite a while back, and I needed help. Thankfully, Rod's Random Work is one of the nicest people I know, and he helped us out designing the articulation for this figure. He printed out everything for us to mold. So he just took my sculpt, sectioned it in different parts, added some articulation bits, printed it out, and sent it over from Japan. We couldn't have done this without you, man. Thanks so much for your help. And I'm really happy that you agreed to be on board on this project. And I have learned so much from you, mate, and I can't really thank you enough. So I have learned how to apply articulation parts to all of my future sculpts, and I'm quite happy with how the brand new RubberSaurs sculpts and designs are coming along, and I can't wait to show everyone how it's going along and all the progress. But today, it's about the T-Rex. So enough babbling, and let's move on to the next stage. Sora is in charge of molding. Once we received all the parts from Rod, she prepared them for molding by adding parts with plasticine or plastiline, closing up any holes, adding air vents and bleeder holes with cocktail sticks and such, avoiding undercuts, and preparing the flanges for the seam lines. And the more work and effort we put into our molds, the easier it is to cast and the better results we get when casting. Then she boxes them around with cardboard, hot glues everything properly so nothing leaks, and then pours the silicone on one side. Once that side is done, she flips it round, adds release agent to that side so the new layer of silicone doesn't stick to the old silicone, closes everything up, and pours silicone again. Once everything is cured, she takes the model out, and voila, the mold is ready for casting. We use RTV condensation cure silicone, and our molds are usually 2-part molds. I think molding might be one of the most tedious steps of this whole project. It takes a while and it's really expensive. Anyway, let's move on to the next step, where Alex explains everything he does.
So a little insight here into how we make our RubberSaurs. I'll get these from Marco. This is the T-Rex. Sora molds them, Marco sculpted them. I lit them with a bit of silicone release spray both sides. That helps get the final cast out of the mould and protects the mould as well. It kind of lasts longer if you look after them. I'll give it a light coating in talcum powder. getting the folds of skin, the scales. This just helps minimise bubbles on the surface, which you don't want, obviously. Bad cast, good cast. Don't come out perfect every time, but this kind of helps it. I'll get rid of the excess out of there. Once that's all out and I'm happy with those, I'll put the two parts together. I'll put ply on top and underneath, plywood. And what this does is it helps so it doesn't squash the mould together. And you don't want that too loose, because if it's too loose, you'll get seepage. If it's too tight, it'll squish the two moulds together and you'll get massive seam line and seepage. So that's got to be perfect. I'll then come over here, I'll mix my part A and part B of rubber. And I'll have two separate beakers, and I'll add to one part special paint that we have pre-mixed for the rubber that we use. So we've got Giga, Acrylic, T-Rex colour. Once thoroughly mixed together, part A and part B, I'll come back over here and I'll pour it through there, part of it, and I'll hand rotocast it for around 5 minutes. And I'll keep looking through the top, making sure that there's no visible silicone. So to make sure everything's kind of covered, all covered in there. And I'll keep that, doing it by hand, checking, looking in. Once I'm happy with that, I'll add the remaining amount of rubber in, which fills to around there. It's all measured out, every single one's the same. And then I'll come over to my rotocaster, which the tail is in, ready to go. And I'll give that a slow spin for around 8 to 10 minutes. Can be longer, depends on temperature. Once that's been spinning for around 10 minutes, I'll stop the rotocaster. I'll pull it back out and I will hand cast it, keep hand casting it, keep looking in like I did at the start to make sure there's an even amount of rubber all the way around the inside of the mould. I'll make sure there's no thick areas, nothing's been building up, especially in the thinner parts, rubber can collect there. So I'll keep spinning that round, and I'll do that for another further 10 minutes or so. Once that starts to set, I'll put it back in here. You have to be fast, and I'll give it a spin. Now go quicker than I did for the start, because I want that rubber to stick to the outside of the mould. I don't want that to move now, I don't want it to run. I know I've got an even coat all the way around it, and that will just stay in there now till it's fully set. Could be another 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, again, temperature, it really depends. Once that's been spinning away, I'll be doing something else, normally preparing the other half of the mould. I'll stop that, I'll take it out, and I'll leave it for 24 hours. And then you'll get a squishy T-Rex. This is the Giga. All my Gigas are down here, all ready to go. Tail parts. That's hopefully going to be our next release. We've got some Acrylic bits here that are 3D printed inside of the mouth for the Giga. Got some Giga heads. So yeah, that is how we do it. Each one takes, each part, there's two parts to the body, there's tail and obviously the body itself. It can take up to half an hour, 45 minutes for each part. So you're looking around an hour and a half to do one, but then you've got to leave it for 24 hours to fully set, you see. So yeah, that is it.
So once Alex has worked his magic, he sends everything back to us. Sora cleans all the bits up, which includes trimming all the seam lines down, cutting off all the bleeder holes, and preparing them to be assembled pretty much. Then it goes to me and I check everything for quality. I start assembling and add all the other parts like the bendy wire inside. Now because these are handmade, every single cast is different from the previous one. So I have to go and manually trim or cut out some parts so the bendy wire can fit properly inside. In this case, I have to modify this tail. I had to cut through and create a space in the middle for the wire to fit in. Pretty much had to do that with all of them. That's just the nature of this type of casting, unfortunately. But it actually works better because it makes the tail even more posable. So the more aluminium bendy wire I add, the stronger it gets, and the easier it will retain the shape once you bend it. I'm covering up any sharp bits with tape, making it nice and strong and secure, and it's ready to put inside the tail. I pretty much repeat the same thing for the body and the neck, but I'll show you that later. Once everything seems to be bending properly, I put it inside the tail and then close up the seams by using super glue. Now this type of rubber is perfect. It can be super glued really easily and it doesn't crack, so that's amazing. So once I glued one side, I check the other side, everything matches up, and I glue the rest together. I then glue the other end of the aluminium armature wire to the base of the tail. Then I fill the empty space with some polyester stuffing, which is the same kind of stuff that is inside plushies and pillows and stuff. Then I prepare the head. I drill some holes on the back of the head so I can insert the aluminium wire in later on. But before I insert the wire, I glue all the head bits together. That includes all the teeth parts and the mouth inserts. These all go in a certain order so the head can articulate properly. Once everything is glued, it is ready to be joined to the rest of the body. Rod and I made sure that all the parts slot in flawlessly and that they don't need trimming at all. Like so, it makes assembly much easier and faster and quite satisfying, I might add. Time to put the bendy wire in the head and then insert everything in the neck. Glue the neck piece together with the head and then glue the end of the bendy wire inside the body. The next step, the arms. Now we have since redesigned the arms to make them even easier and quicker to assemble with the Tyrannosaurus that we're making. But in this case we made a little ring that wraps around the articulation part of the arm, and then we put a cap on the end of that bit so it doesn't slip out. And then we just slide it into its spot and glue it in. Once that's done, I add the belly flap, glue it in place, and then fill the rest of the figure with the same stuffing as before. I glue the top part of the joint between the body and the tail, insert the legs, and then glue the bottom part of the joint so it clamps the leg parts together. And that concludes the assembly section. The next step is painting and finishing. I love to hand paint the figures with brushes. I don't usually airbrush. I've done it before and I don't really like it that much, so I end up using paint brushes. I start with the belly color, which is an off-white, in a very Kenner style. I kind of want to replicate the look and feel of the paint job of the Thrasher T-Rex, but obviously more screen accurate. I'm also adding a dorsal color too, which is a dark brown. These are just normal watered down acrylics. I'd say acrylics are absolutely perfect for this type of rubber. This type of rubber is quite porous and will soak it all in, and it shouldn't rub off that easily. I do tend to add a sealant though at the end, just to prevent any further potential rubbing off of the paint. So once I added that brown, I add a darker brown on top, all quite watered down, just to add a little bit more color. I then add the classic Rex striping all the way down the tail, and the back, and the neck. How can I forget the patterns on the face and the dark eye socket? Then I paint all the claws, including the dew claw, with a nice black. Yellow is perfect for these piercing, evil eyes. I add a black pupil with a toothpick. Then I paint in the details of the scars. The last step of the paint job is a nice gloss coat on the inside of the mouth, the teeth, and the claws, and the eyes, and the nostrils. You might have wondered why the tummy has got a flap. Now that is to be able to access the sound box. If you purchase the optional sound box, you will be able to access it through that flap and replace the batteries if needed. And that's pretty much it. I will upload a video for the boxes too, where I will have A Scene Is Born or Graham Haynes talking about how he did the photography. So you can look forward to that video once it's ready. So I would like to thank everyone for supporting this project. We will keep making them, so don't worry if you miss out on this first run. And a massive thank you to all the Patreons. We could not have done this without you guys. Thanks so much. And a massive thank you to the team. I love you guys. You're awesome. Again, the listing will be up as soon as this premiere video ends. There will be 10 available at launch, and all the links are in the description. Man, we're working on so many RubberSaurs at the moment, and the next release will be the first variant of the ARTEZA. So stay tuned for any news. You can follow me on Instagram or become a Patreon. Those two platforms are where I usually put all of my new updates. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.
I would like to give a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. Seriously guys, your support really does mean the world to me, as it helps me do what I love for you. You help me buy materials, and most of all, you give me a helping hand with improving the quality of the content of my videos. Even if it's just a small donation, every little helps.